Marcus Mosely. I'm the Artistic Director of the Marcus Mosely Ensemble. And we want to invite you to our 12th annual Black History Month concert entitled Celebrating the Songs of Freedom. It's going to be at Christ Church Cathedral on February 3rd. The concert will be a celebration of what we call Songs of Freedom, or Black music and Black culture. We use as a base, a starting point, African American styled gospel music. But we incorporate all different kinds of music. Here in Canada, it's the Black community is not a monolith. There are people from Africa, there's people who come from the States, there are people who come from the islands, from the various islands in the Caribbean. So there's all different kinds of music, different styles of music, and we try to borrow from that and to honor it in different ways. So you might hear anything from an old style blues number, or you might hear full-on gospel, or you may hear a classic. I'm going to be singing a song that was written by Oscar Peterson called Hymn to Freedom. And Oscar Peterson is a Canadian treasure. So yeah, I think it'll be something for everybody. So, Black History Month. I've been doing this concert for 12 years now, and every year there's always the question about why Black History Month, and the answer that I have has evolved over time. One of the reasons for Black History Month is for us, for people of color, to tell our story our way, in our own voice, sharing our music, our culture, our history, our stories. To see Black bodies standing on stage singing this music is a powerful statement. And I'm originally from the States. I was born in Texas during the time of Jim Crow, when there was basically apartheid happening in the United States. And people down there right now are starting to there's a big movement to erase, to whitewash all of that history. They're even putting in history books now that the slaves were workers and they were happy, and that's not the truth. So we must continue. I do this every year because I want to continue to reinforce the truth about my life, my history, and people who look like me and our history, and to tell it in our own voice, in our own way. Because I think that's one of the strengths of Canada, is that we have multiculturalism here. We have this whole understanding of being in a mosaic instead of a melting pot. So each culture is honored. We say that they're honored, but we have to speak up with our own voices to make certain that they are honored and respected and valued in this culture. I'm really excited about this particular lineup of performers that we have this year. One of the groups we're having is the Sojourners, a trio, a roots gospel trio that I sang with for years and years and years. And we have been, since the shutdown, we've sort of been on an extended hiatus. The shutdown for 2 years, so there was no touring and going to festivals, so we couldn't do that. But we're getting back together again, and the added pleasure of that is that Jim Byrnes will be joining us. The reason why we got together at all was Jim called me on the phone and said, "Marcus, I'm doing a CD, and I'd like you to get some guys to come and do background vocals for me." So I called, at that time I called Ron Small and Will Sanders. And we went in to Steve Dawson's studio called the Hen House. And It was like putting a hand in a glove. It fit so well. Jim is originally from St. Louis, Missouri, so he's a former Yank. In fact, small aside, Jim and I got our Canadian citizenship together, so we go way back. So the sound that the group made in the recordings went so well that Jim was saying, "I want to take you guys on the road with me when I release this album." And in fact, he was talking to Steve. He says, "And they're going to need an album, something to sell while they're on the road." So Steve Dawson says, "Okay, I'll produce an album, a CD for them," which was our first CD called "Hold On." And and so we went on tour and sang in festivals and sang all across Canada. Even did a trip to Holland. And we ended up that first album got nominated for Western Canadian Music Award. It was also nominated for, I believe it was a Juno discussion. So and it won the Western Canadian Music Award, I believe, the first time out of the box. So we were excited. Something I'm leaving out though is, as we were getting ready to leave on tour, they said, "Well, what are you going to call yourselves? You're not the Jim Byrnes Singers." So we were trying to figure out a name for ourselves, and Jim emailed, I think either me or someone, that says, "Have you thought about Sojourners?" And we all talked about it, and we thought, that's great. Number one, because the Sojourner, that's a very, very gospel trio kind of name. But it's also a tipping of the hat to Sojourner Truth, who was a black woman who had been a slave and was emancipated, and she was known to, she was an abolitionist, and she was known to speak at rallies and meetings all across the South to help advocate for the freedom of black people. One of her famous speeches was, "Ain't I a woman?" So we got our name from Jim Byrnes. So that's going to be wonderful being back with Jim. We also, in the band, we have Rob Becker on the bass, who's a great bass player. He just has this groove. And he's also our archivist, because I discovered it, we were at a rehearsal once, and we were talking about a set list that we had of a concert we had done months before. Rob had in his collection all of the set lists from all of our concerts that we'd ever done. And in fact, he does that in every group he works with. So he's our archivist. We have also Noah Walker on guitar. He's fabulous, and he plays with a lot of different groups around town, but he has his own group whose name skips my mind right now, so forgive me, Noah. But Noah Walker, we kind of jokingly call him the Night Walker. And then we also have Daniel Ruiz. He's originally from Colombia. He's a fabulous drummer, percussionist. He really has the feel. We've toured with him. This band was our touring group across Canada for off and on over a few years. One of the things we're going to also do that night of the concert, our original member, Ron Small, died a number of years ago. And so Kari McClelland came in and took up the mantle, and he was on our Freedom Never Dies album, and also on our Sing and Never Get Tired album. So he'll be coming in. He's going to be there. But we are going to honor Ron Small. We're going to be singing one of the songs that he was well known for in our group, and just taking a little time just to remember Pop, because he was really responsible for a lot of our sound. He was the guy with the real great ear for harmonies, and would do things that you don't expect. Like, just speaking quickly about harmonies, like each one would take the lower, middle, and top. We take places, and we call that in the stack. But what Pop would do was sometimes partway through a phrase, he'd have a switch right in the middle of the phrase. So that your ear, suddenly you're thinking, it's a different texture, there's a different quality to the sound. And so Ron Small was really, we give him hats off and kudos to Ron. He helped create the original Sojourner sound. So that evening we're going to be honoring him. The other guest we're going to have is Jillian Christmas. She is a spoken word artist. She's an amazing poet. Last year we had her as a guest, and she brought books and so on to sell in the lobby. she sold everything. People just loved her. So we thought we've got to have her back. And she speaks to the Black experience. She's originally from the islands, so she has that Black Canadian Islander, Caribbean point of view, Black woman, queer woman. And so that will be honored and spoken to on that evening as well. And we're bringing back our wonderful MC, Lolly Bennett, Black woman who's originally from England. I love her because I love her English accent. You don't expect that accent to come out of that body. So that's wonderful to hear. So it's going to be a real good night. No bragging, just excitement on my part that it's going to be a wonderful journey of music, and it'll be a reunion. There'll be nostalgia, and there'll be new material. My ensemble will be performing as well. As you see, I'm doing a little bit of shameless self-promotion here, the Marcus Mosely Ensemble, and we're going to be doing some new music. I had commissioned a few songs. One of them from Russ Rosine, who's in the ensemble. So that'll be a new song called "The Empathy Blues." And then we're doing a song by Heather Gray Grant. It's called "I'm Not Gonna Take It," and it speaks to the issue of women's rights, which I think is very poignant, very important for now. And so there will be, yes, the music will have a political edge to it, because in my experience of gospel music, it was always, the church was where the civil rights movement in the United States was born. Dr. Martin Luther King was a Southern Baptist preacher, and his strategy was to go around to all the churches and share this message, train people on how to do peaceful, nonviolent resistance, how to protest. So very often we would come into a church in a city, sing a lot of this gospel music, charge up and build up our spirits and our energy, and then go out to the streets and face whatever was out there, whether it was people with rocks and sticks and police with hoses or whatever. But that's my experience, that's my background of gospel music, and that's some of the energy that will be there on February 3rd. So Christ Church Cathedral, February 3rd, concert starts at 7:30, and I think when you leave that place that night, you will be very full, and I believe encouraged and motivated and inspired to continue the message, to make a difference in the world, because that's the whole point of it anyway, is to change the world for the better. Starting off with empathy. If there's no empathy, then you can't identify with the other person. When you can see yourself in the other person, and they can see themselves in you, then you've got common ground. And that's what that whole evening is going to be about.